So in this lesson, we're going to look at Google Content Experiments, which is actually part of Google Analytics, which is very large and very complex, and I don't profess to be an expert at Google Analytics. I think it would take me many years to delve through all the options and every combination of what's possible in there. So let's get going with setting up an A/B test inside it. Okay, so I'm already in Google Analytics here. So this is my account for my little website, which, as you can see, is a blistering torrent of activity. Actually, to be fair, I've only recently set up Google Analytics, as I've used an analytics piece of software that my ISP provided. So let's get to creating an A/B test in here. So it's tucked away down under behavior. And this is where the content experiments, or experiment as it's labeled, live. So here's a list of experiments that I've created, and one interesting thing about the experiments as they stand at the moment, you can't actually delete them. Once you've created one, it stays here, and you can't even edit them to rerun, which is a bit of a limitation. But then this is provided free of charge, and it's pretty powerful. However, you can just keep adding them as you want. And you see I've got one running there. So, simple to get started. Press the Create Experiment button. Let's give this a name. Okay. Right, so after that we need to create an objective. So there are some metrics provided, and this doesn't feel quite as simple as Verify or Visual Website Optimizer. It'll let you measure the number of page bounces, the number of visits to the page, the total number of actual views, or the length of time that people have been on the site, the length of the session. Or you can create a new objective. So immediately we kind of have to jump out of this setup and go and create a goal, which we appear in the admin section suddenly. So that's okay. Let's create a goal called button click, and I've already done this, so actually it's intelligently filled in, because what I want to do is track the number of visits to the thank you page after clicking on my button. So clicking on destination, there's some other options. So if you could a goal could be to spend longer than 5 minutes, or however much time on your site or on your page. It could be the number of pages viewed, or it could be a specific event, which seems a little bit more tricky to get going. I think in terms of a button, it's quite a simple process of giving it the URL. So the next step is to give the goal some further details. So give it the thank you page. Actually, I'm going to give it the full URL, just to be sure. And it is case sensitive, and I do have a capital B, so that's okay. Value. This, I haven't tried this out, but it looks like you can actually add a monetary value to the conversion, so you can get a kind of an idea of how much this test would actually benefit you in real terms, in terms of money. You can also set up an entire funnel for which steps you follow after this goal has. The goal is to follow the path through the funnel. So that's a more complex option as well. I'm not going to do that now. Let's just get the basic test set up. Okay, so we've created our goal. Okay. So we now it's not immediately obvious when you're on here what you're going to do, because we've kind of left the behavior panel and it's not letting us go back directly from here. And clicking on this will take us back to the details. So as far as I know, we have to go back to the behavior, so the experiment step that we started. So it tells us that we're only on step 1. So we need to go back in here, and now we can select a metric, and there is my goal in goal set 1. Okay, that seems a little bit confused, but it gets you there. And remember, it's free, and it's very powerful. You just have to keep in mind what's happening as you go through the steps of creating an experiment. Right, again, on content experiments, you have an option to direct 100% of your traffic or whatever proportion. And you can even have an email sent to you if something important happens in your test. The advanced options are interesting because by default the option is to not distribute traffic evenly across the two or however many variations you set up. So it's interesting that it's off, and it's off because Google has an approach called multi-armed bandits, which is an intriguing thing. But basically it has an algorithm to dynamically vary the traffic based on how the variations are performing, and this is supposed to speed up the length of the test and make it quicker. They provide a lot of information on this, and it sounds pretty good. It sounds like it could speed up the test. It's up to you whether you want to try and take a shortcut or do it the traditional way of just sending equal amounts of traffic to A or B. But it sounds intriguing, and I haven't got into the full the full details of Bayes' theorem and how good that is, and whether it's actually going to produce statistically significant results or not, because it starts getting a bit heavy. So anyway, I'm going to keep it off for now. Right, the next option, we can set a minimum time for the experiment to run, and it does say, it does warn you that a shorter minimum time will lead to faster results, and we're going to come on to this in the next lesson about when results are significant. So it's good that they give you a minimum of 2 weeks, and as it says here, it can take 3 months, and well, sometimes it can take a lot longer to actually produce a definitive answer. And they also give you an option to give you a confidence threshold. Again, that's quite a nice thing. You can set it to be really high, so you want to be 99.5% confidence that one is performing better than another. And this is just before Google Analytics declares one or other as the winner in the results page. Okay, so let's go to the next step. So the next step, we actually configure the experiment. Now, Google Content Experiments doesn't have a pull in the page, play about with the content option like is used on Visual Website Optimizer or Optimizely. Instead, you have to create a different page for each of your variations. Now there's an advantage to that immediately. You don't have the problem of the content flicker, because it's not one page being altered in real time as you hit it. Instead, it's literally one page or the other. The disadvantage is if you have common elements to both and they change for any reason, you've now got to change them in 2 places rather than 1. But let's set up that. So the first one, and it will pull in a preview of the page, so you can be pretty sure you've got the right page. That is the right page, but it hasn't pulled the image in. Okay, we'll keep that as original. So variation B, let's just pull in the same paste that, and that's index B. So I've created another copy of my page. We'll call that variation 1. Okay, next step. We need to, again, the same as Optimizely and Visual Website Optimizer, we need to add the experiment code so it can be tracked. And here's the Google Analytics experiment code. Now you also need the bog standard Google Analytics tracking code in your pages. Otherwise Google Analytics itself can't track what's happening. So you do need both. So let's copy this one. I'll just copy and paste it. Go into my editor. So again, it needs to go in the head. And as you'll see, I've already got another function, another bit of JavaScript, which is the Google Analytics code itself, and that usually lives down the bottom of the page. Okay, let's save that. Now, same for my second page. Okay, so let's FTP those up. I tend to use FileZilla still, even though I know it's inside Coda. For any Coda enthusiasts out there, let's just put all 3 pages on my server updated. Okay, so we've got the tracking code, we've got Google Analytics code. It gives us some additional information for the experiment code, which you don't need. Apart from that, that key is the same key inside the analytics code, and it does change every time. So let's see if it's happy with our code. Okay, so it's found the experiment code and it's found the Google Analytics code in our original and our variation, and you can create some notes. And the next step is to start the experiment. And remember, once you've started it, you can't edit it, so you have to make sure everything is looking correct. So let's start. Okay, so experiment launched, and it gives you a rundown of what's going to happen. And I'll take you back to the experiment list. Okay, so now if we go to the page. Okay, so we've been given index B as our test, and you can see that in the Google Analytics the URL it's put in. And again, when we refresh, we'll keep seeing the same thing until we clear our cookies. So I'll use that little Chrome extension again. And you must make sure that you delete the entire URL, otherwise you'll just keep getting the index B part. There we go. We got the original variation. So we know the test's working, that's great, and we'll keep getting that one again. So that's Google Content Experiments. It's very powerful, it's completely free, and it's going to be improving hopefully all the time. I quite like the 2-page option or the multiple page option, because it can keep your variation separate, and if you're trying to do some big changes between your variations, it's a lot easier to manage than an in-page WYSIWYG, which is ideal for changing little bits here and there, an image, a button, some text, a logo, but not quite so good for changing layouts around, that sort of thing. Okay, so in the next section we're going to look at some results and what statistical significance is and other goodies. So I'll see you then.